Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending the Ingenu webinar, How to Get Business Value from the IoT Right Now. My name is Kirsten Garvin, and I'm the Senior Marketing Manager at Ingenu, and I'll be serving as moderator. Following our presentation today, we will conduct a brief question and answer period, so please submit your questions during the webinar through the Questions tab on your webinar interface. With me today is our presenter, Dr. Michael Vedomske, Ingenu's Vice President of Strategy and Analytics. Mike is an expert on machine learning, analytics, and predictive modeling, and his role at Ingenu is creating technical engineering content and making it understandable and consumable by our customers and partners. With that, I will turn the call over to Dr. Vedomske.
Thank you very much, Kirsten, and welcome everyone to our webinar today. We are very excited to have you here and to give you ways to get business value from the IoT. And the goal from this is so that you can go to your companies and gather your teams and ask the right kinds of questions you need to get value from the business value from the IoT. So a little bit about us. We are Ingenu, and we were founded in March of 2008, and we're here in sunny San Diego. And we're founded by some engineers from Qualcomm who saw the need to bring wireless connectivity to machines. We currently employ about 120 employees, and we are very proud of the leadership that we have here at Ingenu. On our board, we have Andrew Viterbi, who is an advisor to our board, who was a co-founder at Qualcomm, and who also invented the Viterbi algorithm. If you aren't familiar with it, just Google his name. You'll see lots of very interesting things and see how smart he is. So definitely a founder of the wireless industry. We also have Ivan Seidenberg on our board, who is the founding CEO of Verizon, and Richard Lynch, who was a CTO at Verizon. And of course, we're very proud of John Horn, our current CEO, who founded the M2M group at T-Mobile and then founded the Rayco Wireless company, and also has done very well in this space for a very, very long time. We're also happy about our customers. We've been working with many for quite a long time, and you can see some of them right there. So the webinar today, one of the key takeaways is that IoT business value isn't really a technology challenge. It's an imagination challenge. And it's something that what we really hope to convey through a series of stories and a series of questions. So to begin, let's think about two companies that you might be familiar with. First is Amazon, and the next is Borders. Now, if you don't know who Borders is, they are a book company who sold books beginning back in 1971, so about 45 years ago. And Amazon, of course, was founded about 22 years ago in 1994. Amazon was founded in Bellevue, Washington, Borders in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And they've done very, very well. In 2001, Borders had revenue about 1.7 times that of Amazon. So they're doing very, very well. That's just in the first quarter. So in the first quarter, Borders revenue was almost twice that of Amazon. It was doing super well. And so the very next quarter, the internet had come about, things were going well, Amazon was doing all right, it was an online retailer of books, and so Borders said, you know what, let's outsource our online sales to Amazon. And that's what they did. Amazon did really well at processing the orders. They had a great system in the background that could accommodate the traffic, and they knew what they were doing. The thing is, Borders was actually handing over the close of the sale to Amazon. And what would happen is you'd go to the Borders website, you'd find the book you want, and then you'd click purchase, and then it would take you to Amazon's website to actually finish the sale. So that was the second quarter of 2001. And in 2005, Borders was by all accounts doing very, very well. It had 1,200 bookstores globally, had 15,000 employees, $4 billion in sales. So it was fairly healthy. And it decided in 2007 to break off the deal with Amazon. It said, look, we could do this ourselves. Internet's been around for a little while. We'll go ahead and make our own store. And that's the real key here. is the internet really began to be mainstream about the same time as when Amazon was founded, right? In 1994, 1995, things really started taking off. People started using it. It was much more mainstream than it was in prior years. By the time Borders decided to take advantage of the internet as a technology, it had been around for well over a decade and was commonplace in just about every household. And so that's when they finally launched their own online sales, and that was actually a year after they broke off the deal. So it still took them a year. It took them until 2008 to do their own online store. Well, just a few quarters or a few years later, in the fourth quarter of 2010, Borders' revenue was well under $1 billion, $370 million, whereas Amazon's revenue was $13 billion. So there's definitely something going on here. And within a few quarters, Borders was bankrupt. So in 2011, Borders was bankrupt. And of course, Amazon had become the world's largest online retailer. The thing is, it wasn't just Borders. Borders wasn't a fluke. It wasn't just a single case. And Amazon wasn't a fluke either. There are other companies as well. If you recognize Encyclopedia Britannica, everyone knows what happened there. With Wikipedia, of course, Tower Records, Blockbuster Video, these are all companies who, for a very, very long time, did very, very well. But with the advent of the internet, and that as a technology source and a way to develop new business models and a way to serve customers and to talk to customers and interact with them in novel ways, because they weren't able to adapt, they got left behind. And we're coming to you today with this because the Internet of Things is one of those changing technologies. Just like the internet changed how Amazon and the book selling business worked and online retail worked, the Internet of Things is another kind of technology that will shift and that is changing how businesses operate and how they interact with customers and how they interact with their own organization. So Amazon was able to ask themselves the right questions. And it really is key to be able to ask the right questions to those who know how to answer those questions. And that's the people who actually run the business. And so business value is going to come from asking yourself the right kind of question to take advantage of the Internet of Things and the technology that goes along with it, the connectivity, the devices, and the data analytics that go with the Internet of Things. And so what you should come away with today is a series of questions that you can think about and go with your team and really ponder and consider so that you can look at your business and see it from new eyes and from the eyes of the Internet of Things and from connecting your business and connecting with your customers in ways that weren't possible before. And I'm going to say up front, one of the important things is really going to be making sure that you don't outright dismiss any of the answers that come to your team when you're going through these kinds of questions. When you're just trying to be creative and when you're trying to come up with things that you haven't thought of before, if you start dismissing and trying to filter through, it actually uses a different part of your brain and it will reduce your ability to be creative and find all the new things. So the time for filtering and prioritizing and working through is later, and the time for asking questions and answering questions is what you want to do right now. So after this and after you have these questions, make sure you just let everyone speak and get the creative ideas out, and then you can work through what makes sense and what doesn't make sense for your business. So just a little side note for you when you actually go back to your teams and work through these questions. All right, so it's important first to know what is your company's value proposition or propositions, and it's plural on purpose because every business has more than just one reason why customers come to them. And what it is that you're actually doing and providing that makes customers keep coming back to you. And so we have a series of questions here to help you identify, if you don't know what your value proposition, what it is. So just to make it clear, often a value proposition is misunderstood in a subtle way. So let's take a hotel as an example. What is the value proposition of a hotel? Very commonly, someone would say, oh, well, it's a room to stay in when I'm away from home. It's a place to sleep. It's a place to put my things while I'm off doing my business or, playing in the city or that kind of thing. Well, yes, that is the enabler of the value proposition for the hotel, but that's not the actual value proposition. The value proposition is the things about your service or product that make customers choose you rather than somebody else, right? And that's what this first question is. Why do customers choose my company and not others? So going back to the hotel example, one example of a value proposition could be, let's suppose you have a hotel that has a really seamless customer experience. The customer can come in, they immediately know where they're going. They don't have to really do anything to check in. They've got some sort of technology that integrates with their smartphone, and so they checked in as soon as they walk into the hotel, and they go right to their room without having to even think about it, and it's just absolutely seamless. They can get on just like they can come home and go right to and go on about their business at home. They have the same kind of experience at a hotel, right? So the value proposition there is the seamless experience. It feels and is easy as going home. Another hotel could have a different value proposition. That one's value proposition could be something like having a really, really fun social scene. So maybe it has a couple of clubs, it has a great bar, and so people come in and they know that they're going to be able to see their friends and have a really fun night together, and then also get home safely because, well, all the fun things that they're doing are inside of the hotel itself. Right? So the value proposition there is a night of fun with friends and a gathering place for friends, and then a safe way back home or back to your bed so you can go to sleep and not be in danger. So that is the second. Those are two examples of value propositions that a hotel could have. And so your company has something that it does, something that it is very good at, or many things that it is very good at. And there are ways that you differentiate yourself from other companies. So while you may provide a widget, what is it about your widget, about your business, that makes it so customers choose you? If you don't know, if you're not sure why you're successful and why customers choose you over others, this is a good thing to find out. Because then once you do figure it out, you can then amplify that thing and you can do even better at your business. So even if you don't know it right now, that's okay, because knowing will help you only do better. And if you do already know it, then the things we talk about today will also help you more readily accelerate your IoT strategy. So some other questions to help you delve into what your value propositions are what unique services or products do we offer, so you as a company, that others can't or can't offer as well? And so do you have unique capabilities or skills, maybe knowledge that others don't have, that you can offer unique services or products that others simply can't do? Another question you can ask yourself is, why do our customers keep coming back to us? And you can actually ask that question to your customers. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, customers will probably readily tell you that. And if they say something like, well, you're the cheapest, then you've become a commodity and you don't really have differentiators. And so your value proposition is just cost. And so you might want to find other ways to augment their experience so that it's more than just cost and you can actually have a price premium. Other questions are, what do we know that no other company knows? And that's similar to what do we do, but there could be things that you know and that you understand that others don't understand. And what do we do that no other company does? Perhaps you have certain services or certain offerings that others don't. And it could be as simple as, we give all of our customers that come into our office a piece of candy or a cookie. And that sounds silly, but there are hotel chains that actually do that, right? They offer delicious cookies. So what are we the absolute best at in the world? Is there something that you do that is simply better than what anybody else can do? There may be something there, and if you don't have an answer to that question, that's fine. But there might be something that you are really, really good at. All right. So how can you gain value from the Internet of Things? Well, it really comes from two sources. And these are the classic ones that you often think about. They're cost savings and there's revenue generation. So it's reducing the costs or it's increasing revenue. And that makes sense, right? But now that you see it this way, we're going to look at the IoT from these two perspectives. There are a few things about developments as of late in the Internet of Things that really enable increasing or gaining value from the IoT, from the Internet of Things. And one of those is affordable out-of-the-box connectivity. And this is important because it makes it very simple to get connected, to get devices that you can get connected to a network, to wireless connectivity, and it just works. It makes it so that you don't have to think about it much. It's just like a smartphone, where you get a smartphone and you do some simple task and suddenly it's activated and you're good to go. That's very important, and it speeds a company's ability to move forward with an IoT strategy. Coupled with that is the fact that many of the wireless connectivity options that are coming out are professionally managed, and that's important because it makes it so that you don't have to worry about a lot of things. One of those things is managing infrastructure. If your company doesn't specialize in managing infrastructure, then you'll all of a sudden have to be an expert in managing infrastructure. If you do, you go with an option that doesn't have that capability. That also means that you don't have to hire a special IT team to manage the devices, to go about and install hardware, to do updates on the firmware, and all sorts of things like that. So a professionally managed network is something that makes it very easy for most any company to get online and get their devices and their company connected in ways that will bring them value. Another key IoT value enabler is the device longevity enabled by low power wide area networks. So device longevity really stems from the fact that you can have a device out in the field that is battery powered for a very, very long time. And depending on the data model, and it really does depend on the data model, and the data model is just how much data is sent and how often that data is sent. And that's what really determines, that's the data model. So if you have, say, 100 bytes of data that gets sent once a day, like one of our customers does, then the battery could last 20 years very easily. If it sends more data more often, then it will last not as long, but it can still last a decade or even more very easily, depending on the kind of data you're collecting and how much data you're collecting and how often you send it. But this device longevity really enables the return on investment, because it makes it so that you don't have to roll a truck out to switch out the battery. And as soon as a truck, or you have to hire somebody to go out to the device, swap a battery out, you've already lost $150 right there that a truck roll could cost. It could cost upwards of $500 or more, depending on how far away it is and how difficult it is to access the device. And a truck roll just kills the investment. But the device longevity enabled by LPWA technology totally removes that and makes it so you can invest in a lot of devices and do so very inexpensively. Related to that is network longevity. And this is important because some technologies have sunsets. This is very salient in this year because AT&T's sunsetting its 2G networks. It's completing it really by the end of this year. So in America, for AT&T, all of the 2G networks will be sunsetted. And that's a real problem if you have designed your business, or that you have a business plan that relies on having devices that are out in the field for a long time, and suddenly you're being told that, oh, actually you have to swap out those devices because the SIM card won't work because it's new wireless technology, or some other, the module is out of date. So it's important that you have network longevity. So when you are looking for connectivity, make sure that you have all of these things, because this is what really enables the value in the IoT. And just like Amazon was able to take advantage of the internet and the ubiquity of it, and the fact that it was in everyone's homes already, these are things that you can use to gain value from the IoT for your business. Alrighty, so a few key assumptions or things to note when finding opportunities for value in your company. The first is to recognize that processes, organizational processes, really are no longer static. A lot of times we take processes for granted. We feel like there's something that is unchangeable and unchanging, and that's just the way we operate. Well, to really gain value, you have to be willing to recognize, well, actually these can change, and it might be helpful to change them. If you do things the same way you've always done, then somebody else will find a better way, and they'll outcompete you in the marketplace. Okay, the second assumption or thing to understand is that you need to identify formal and informal processes. And informal processes exist in all organizations. And a process is just a way to do things in a consistent manner so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. So you really want to identify those processes, formal and informal, so that you can find where are the ways that we can gain value in these things. This is particularly true when thinking about reducing costs, but it can still be used to find new revenue sources in your business. All right, so collecting new data and augmenting current processes. So it might be possible in looking at opportunities for value to collect new data that you don't have, and augment the processes that you already have. And this is something that we'll often look at to find ways to reduce costs. And finally, it might be possible to create entirely new processes. And that's the hope, is that you get new data, new ways of interacting with your operations, new ways of interacting with your customers, so that you can create new processes that are vastly reduce costs or give you new value streams for your business. So next we're going to talk about and look at questions we can ask to reduce costs in our company. So first, what costs and processes have you always assumed can or will never change? And this reflects that first assumption that we talked about. Are there any of those that you really think can't change? And it might be true. Maybe there are some that really can't change. But until you really look at it and really pin it down and understand what it is about it that you think can't change, then you won't know for sure. And you might overlook really valuable opportunities. So look at your organization, look at your company, and find ways that or processes that you think can't and won't ever change. And really think about, is it true about each one? And what is it about it that can't change? Another question you can ask to help reduce costs is, well, what parts of these processes, any of the processes that your company uses, involve physical assets or physical movement? And it's important to think about physical assets and physical movement because the Internet of Things is physical, whereas the Internet itself connected information and connected people across time and across space very quickly. The Internet of Things really expands our presence out into the physical world. So right now, the most we really experience the Internet of Things is on a mobile phone. And a mobile phone is a collection of sensors and is a way to interact with usually cloud-based applications, but sometimes if you've got devices connected with those devices. But we're pretty limited to just the smartphone in our hand and the sensors that are on that smartphone, like the accelerometer, the compass, those sorts of things, GPS. Now imagine if you had a smartphone or something akin to a smartphone in key parts of your company, whether it would be measuring temperature in some place or opening and closing of a door or other things where you could turn that into information that you would normally have to go and walk and find or send somebody to find it out. But now with a device there, you don't have to go do that, right? So the Internet of Things makes it so that you can, instead of having smartphones in those places, you can have the right kind of sensor in locations around your organization, around the world, interacting with customers or giving you data, and you don't have to be there present. That's the difference between the Internet and the Internet of Things. Your fingertips, the ones that are usually on your smartphone, all of a sudden have more senses, right? They can measure temperature, they can measure wind speed, they can measure pressure in a tank or in a pipeline. They can measure a velocity of fluid going through a pipe. They can tell a light to turn on or off. They can do all the things that whatever sensors exist, you can do that now from a central location and have the sensors out there interacting with the actual physical real world. And so that's why we say, you know, what parts of these processes involve physical assets and physical movement? Because the Internet of Things really is physical. It's going beyond just the screen and going out into the real world. All right, what information would help you improve those parts of the processes? So now that you've identified some of these processes, is there information you could gather or purchase or something else to help you improve those parts of the processes? And what internal and external facing processes does your company have that are informal or formal? So this is important. Notice there's really 4 questions in one, because it asks what internal processes does your company have that are formal, what external processes, external facing processes does your company have that are formal, and then internal that are informal and external that are informal. So it's really looking and going through and breaking it down in those 4 ways. Another way to think about it is, what internal pain points does your company or even organization within your company experience? Are there things in your company that everyone complains about, or a few key people complain about, that you feel like could be fixed or should be fixed? It just really makes it so it's difficult to operate. And some of those pain points could be solved through monitoring or automation or even optimization using sensors or some other sort of physical world sensor interacting with the thing. And how can you address those pain points with more information or by automating them? That's the next question to ask yourself. Is there a way to get information so that you may work through those pain points? All right, so there's more than just reducing costs. We talk about the 2 different ways to get business value, and one was reducing costs, but there's also revenue generation. So making more money, getting more sales, generating more revenue. And we'll break that down into two more ways. The first is augmenting your current value proposition. So are there ways to improve the things that you already do to please customers and to give them services and products that they want to pay for? And the second thing is to create new value propositions. Are there ways to find new value, new revenue streams, and things that you can do that you haven't been doing before? Alrighty, so augmenting your current value propositions. The first thing to think about is, what data, if you had it, would lead you to serve or better serve your current customers? And it might be data about them, if you know more about, and that's traditionally what people are doing, what companies have been doing, is just learning more about their customers. But there could be other data not related to your customers that could still help you serve your current customers. And it might be possible that physical sensors can strengthen those things that you do for them. So are there physical sensors that could strengthen your current value proposition? Are there things out in the world that if you measured, if you looked at, and if you had, would strengthen the things that you do currently? And how can a physical sensor give your customers a better experience with your service or product? So some of the things that you could do could actually interact with the customers. It might be as simple as having a light that indicates, that a parking space is available. You might have seen those at an airport. You drive through and there's a sensor there that indicates whether or not a vehicle is in the spot, and you look and say, oh, it's green, I can park there, or oh, it's red, I can't park there, right? That is a very nice customer experience when driving to airports that are equipped that way. And you can do similar things with your customers in your business. It doesn't have to be necessarily a light, but that's just an example of how physical sensors give data to customers to improve their experience. In what ways could you wow and delight your customers if you had more data, or if you deployed physical sensors to interact with or collect information from your customers? So you really are trying to find ways to wow and delight your customers. And if you had data that could wow and delight them, and had physical sensors out in the world that could interact with them, you might be able to better wow and delight them. That's a reframing of the current question, but you really want to think about things that using your imagination could really take your business to the next level. All right, this is related to the pain points in your internal organization. What are the friction points in your customers' experiences with your product or service? Are there parts of your operations or parts of interacting with your customers that just aren't as smooth as they should be? And maybe they don't even recognize it as being not smooth, but to you, you know that they are not smooth. Are there ways that you could solve those using physical sensors and devices collecting information about or interacting with customers? Could you learn more about those friction points using devices? Could you learn more about your customers? Could you manage their expectations using physical sensors or devices? Those are all things that ways that the IoT could help you gain or augment your current value propositions. Alrighty, so let's think about some ways to create new value propositions. First is, what resources do you have internally that you haven't leveraged as a product or service yet? There might be things that you do really, really well internally that you just haven't commercialized, something that you haven't done externally. And what data, if you had it, could take those resources and help solve your customers' problems? Is there some sort of data that could help make it so it's easier to externalize those things? And do you already have that data, or can you purchase it? Or is it something where you can place physical sensors or other things out in the real world to give you that data? And what organizations within your company have outstanding performance? One way to identify value centers in your company is to think about who in this company is doing really, really well at what they do. And even if that's not something that you thought could be externalized, you may reconsider that and think about that as a way to create new value for customers and get new customers. And what does that organization do that you could automate with smart connected devices? Some parts of those processes or things that you do internally could be automated and then externally offered as a product or service. And then, of course, answering the question, can you offer that service or product externally is important, because if you can't, then it may only be something where you can reduce costs. But if it's something you can offer externally, or maybe partner with somebody to help you offer it externally, then you can get new value from those things. So why is all this important? And why does this matter? Well, let's go back to Amazon and think about what they've been doing. In the third quarter of 2002, Amazon launched Amazon Web Services. And what that was is they recognized that many of their customers, many of the developers that were using their services as a seller, needed an easier way to develop their online stores and to work with and interact with their sales and do their online sales in a smooth, seamless way. And Amazon Web Services was really when people inside of the company recognized, hey, our customers have these friction points. It's difficult for them to develop easily. And in fact, many companies were going to Amazon and saying, look, could you help us do a better job with our online sales? Could you help us do a better job setting up stores and making sales processes smoother and faster? And Amazon recognized, you know what, this is something that keeps happening. And at first, it was really just a way to reduce costs, to make it easier for them to spin up an online store for somebody who needed one. And they recognized, you know what, if this is something the customers we already have need, perhaps this is something external and more customers need as well. And so they turned what at first was a cost reduction activity to a value source and a value stream. And what's interesting here is that was a new technology, or it was a renewing of a technology, and that is cloud technology. That was invented a long time ago, but it was a resurgence, and they utilized it in a new way so that they could help find new value streams. This is important because Amazon didn't invent the internet. It wasn't their technology. So when they were an online bookseller, it's not that they invented the internet. They just saw technology and how it could better serve customers, and they utilized it. The same thing with cloud computing. They saw cloud computing as a way to better serve and to find new customers. And Amazon is doing it again. Right now, they're looking at the delivery space, and they are going to become a delivery source. And they're developing and using a technology that could go and help them that way, using their quadcopters and those sorts of things, or even just your classic old delivery truck. They're finding new ways to offer delivery services. They didn't invent any of these technologies, but what they did do is they looked at what they could do, they looked at their value propositions, and they looked at their customers, and they decided, okay, these technologies that we're involved with or that exist, how can we use them to improve our customers' experiences and to find new value and also reduce costs for ourselves? And which ones make the most sense for our company? And then they went with it and moved forward, and they've done very, very well, and they've grown very, very fast. And your company can do the same thing. So that's what we really want to emphasize. And just to show you how quickly you can grow, in the fourth quarter of 2015, Amazon Web Services generated $2.4 billion in revenue. It's not a very long time where they're generating more revenue than some companies are ever worth. And this is an entirely new space for them back when it first started. So for the Internet of Things, Ingenu has made the technology, and we want to turn it over to you and allow you to make something great. So now it's your turn. Thank you for participating, and we hope to answer your questions.
Thank you, Mike. You provided us with some great information. And now we're going to open up the webinar for questions from the audience. As a reminder, to submit your question, please use the questions tab on your webinar interface. Okay, our first question is, how do you see Ingenu providing your piece of the value proposition to the end customer? If, for example, someone such as Verizon were to offer a better value in terms of service level agreements, costs, and new features, how would we counter?
We offer RPMA as the technology, and that's what provides the connectivity to those who would want to use the Internet of Things in their companies. A company like Verizon, they're able to choose as a carrier whatever technology they would like for connectivity, if that's what they want to do. But typically they use things that come out of 3GPP or the GSMA, and they're bound by that technology and its capability. So in terms of cost, right now, IoT or LTE M2, I think is its other acronym. You know, as a piece of technology, it's bound by the fact that it has to work worldwide across 30+ bands, and they have to get scale, and there are all sorts of things. So as far as cost goes, it's not something that we're particularly concerned about. And as we've been doing this for a long time, and our technology is very simple. So as far as cost goes, that's not a huge concern for us. And in fact, until the technology is actually finalized, I mean, the standard isn't even finished yet, a conversation about cost is really difficult to have, because the technology needs to actually exist before we can really have a conversation about that.
Okay, our next question is, how long does it take to get a solution to market, and what does the ecosystem look like?
All right, so it really depends how long it takes to get a solution to market. It really depends on the solution you're trying to implement. So if it's a complicated one that involves many systems and things that, if it's a new thing that you haven't done yet, we've seen currently we've had systems go live or have a system work well in 6 months. This is something obviously that we're working on as we're building out the machine network, and going global is speeding that up and making it very easy. But you have to you know, that's just part of the growing pains of a fast-moving technology company. And there was a second part to that question. Let me get that. What does the ecosystem look like? Well, we've got quite a few partners, and some of the devices that are in that ecosystem. You know, we have light monitoring. We've got, of course, our development kit, pressure sensors, temperature sensors, intrusion monitoring, overhead fault circuit indicators. You know, classically, we've served a lot of utilities, which is fine, because the basic device really is something like turning something on or off, measuring pressure, indicating whether something is full or not. And all of those things really are surprising. It's surprising how far and wide those can be used in an organization. They don't sound glamorous, but when you aggregate that across your entire organization and you use it intelligently, it can add a lot of value to your company.
Okay, next question is, our company is currently using cellular technology for a low data rate application. How does your technology compare in costs and as well as function?
Okay, so cellular technology, it's right now, if it's using 2G, it is definitely more, and it's more in terms of the actual data plans, but also in the fact that you're going to be sunsetted. If not now, if you're not with AT&T, then very soon, and you're going to have to basically pay for that system again. And so, as far as data plans go and paying for that, we definitely best a cellular-based solution, 2G specifically to your question, but any others. And as a technology, we're able to serve very well many of the data plans that currently use 2G. Obviously, if it's a high throughput application, we won't do as well. Our technology isn't designed to do high throughput, no video streaming or voice. But anything using low data throughput, a megabyte or 3 megabytes less a month, we can handle that just fine.
The next question is, how pervasive is RPMA with respect to coverage? Is RPMA poised to serve mobile telemetry applications, or is it best suited for fixed static implementations?
Okay, that's a good question. So RPMA is currently being deployed in the United States. We're going live very, very soon in a few cities, and we're continually rolling out. And so it's something that, by the end of this year, we will have 30 cities covered in the United States. And we also have agreements with dozens of countries worldwide, and are moving forward rapidly. Our time to market, we have a significant time to market advantage over cellular and other technologies simply by the fact that we already exist and we've existed for a very long time, and we work. The thing is, with many technologies like cellular, when they get developed, a standard first has to be written and completed, which it's not. But when it is completed, then you still have to actually test it. You have to develop, the devices themselves, and then you have to actually test them out in the real world before you can get information on things like battery life and others. And so we feel very comfortable in the fact that we've been around and out in the real world operating since 2011. Now, with respect to your second question, is RPMA poised to serve mobile telemetry applications? The answer to that right now is no. We do not generally serve high-speed mobile applications. Can we do low speed? Yeah, absolutely. But we don't intend to serve, at least right now, the high-speed mobile applications. Is it possible? Yes, there are changes we could make. Absolutely. If that's something that we find is valuable and that there's large customer demand for, our technology can certainly do high-speed mobile applications, and that's something that we obviously have looked at and considered. But as of right now, with our deployments and our network build out, we do not intend to serve high-speed mobile applications.
Okay, a few years from now, NB IoT will be out, scalable, and supported by big names. How will we be able to compete with that?
Okay, that's a good question. So first is 1 to 2 years from now, right? And that is the first question. Will it really be out in time? And let's suppose it is, right? Let's just assume it is. That's fine. Will it be able to perform according to what it says it can perform? And that's key. So we talked about how device longevity is so important, and it really is. And battery life is a key component of that. And that's not something you can really know until you have built a device using a completed specification, right? A complete standard, and know exactly how the device operates in the real world. Until you've done that, you really can't make any definitive statements as to what your battery life is. Anyone who's aware of how the capacity tests went and trials went with the early technologies like 2G or 3G or more, until the technology's out, you can claim theoretical capacity, and then when it actually gets out there, the capacity is typically much lower. There's a real world hit that happens, and that same thing happens with battery life. And so, device longevity is going to be important, and people really need, businesses really need that device to go out there for a very long time. Secondly, device cost is always going to be an issue for cellular, NB-IoT specifically, and just because it is based on LTE, which is expensive. No matter how much you simplify the technology, it's still LTE-based technology, and it has to support bands all over the world, 30 plus. And so you can only simplify that so much, and you can only get scale to a certain level. And the reason is you have to develop regional specific devices. If you want to do a global deployment, for example, on an NB-IoT or others, now you're starting to talk about more than just one chip and more than just one way to support the device using connectivity over NB-IoT. So that's another thing that we have greatly, we really greatly reduce how complicated it is to get connected. We use one band around the entire world, the 2.4 gigahertz band, and we've been doing it for such a long time. We understand the difficulties that come with operating in the space that we are, and we're very good at being robust. We've been securely and robustly supporting many very difficult customers for a long time. And so we have a very simple way to get connected all the way around the world. So that's another way that we can very easily compete with NB-IoT. And as far as big names go, the big names are nice, but until they can actually offer value to end customers, we'll have 1 to 2 years to be that big name, to be another big name, and really demonstrate through real world performance what it means to be connected to the Internet of Things and to get value.
Okay, and this will be our last question. How do I determine which type of IoT network is ideal for my requirements?
Okay, that's a good question. So we actually presented a webinar. It was our first webinar about this very issue, and it was called "Making Sense of Your IoT Connectivity Options." And obviously, we recommend it. We made it, and what it does is it goes through other kinds of questions, but also information, things that we as industry insiders understand about the technology, and about the different kinds of technology that are important for business to understand, just so they don't get tied into something that maybe they will regret later. For instance, we're familiar with a very large company who invested quite a bit of money using 2G technology, only to find out months later, I kid you not, months later, that they were going to be sunsetted very, very soon. And you know, that's really unfortunate that such a large investment was made. And that's something that you know, obviously we would like to help prevent. And so that webinar provides lots of information on how to look at the different connectivity options in terms of security and capacity and coverage and all sorts of things to help make sense of them and make it a lot easier. It doesn't need to be complicated. So we give you the right kind of questions you can ask to different providers, you know, us included, to make sure that you're getting the kind of technology that you can rely on for decades to come.